How is it going, guys? Malagant here. We're going to be looking at the resist reduction in Grim Dawn. It's one of the better multipliers for your character when it comes to like late game, and there's quite a few monsters that are really resistant to you, whatever you're playing in this game. So you're gonna need to go for that if you want to make a decently strong build in the late game. But as I said, in Grim Dawn, since you can go to minus resistances as well, which is meaning you can actually amplify the damage that you're going to be dealing to the target even after they reach 0 resistances against you, then you can go minus. So you will be actively gaining a multiplicative damage multiplier versus them. That means that minus resistances are any point versus anything, even if they are not resistant to you, are incredibly important. And it's a good thing to understand how they work, and we're going to be discussing that in this video. Thank you for joining. I have multiple other guides prepared for you in my channel, and they're all recent. If you would like to check out some Grim Dawn guides in my channel, feel free to check it out. They'll be on the top right section right now. Right, so just to keep the video a little bit easier to understand and also simplified, and I'll try to do things a little bit step by step, so I'll like divide it into sections. On the first section, we're just going to be looking at the different types of resist reduction that you can get in Grim Dawn. There are 3 different types of resist reductions. I'm going to be naming them type 1, type 2, and type 3. And the order that I'm going to be doing this is going to be the order that they're going to be calculating as well. So the type 1 is going to calculate first your enemy's resistances. The type 2 is going to be going in second, and the type 3 is going to be, going in last, and then therefore after all these calculations you will be able to see your enemy's last resistance, let's say, or the final resistance that's going to be against you. The first type that we will look into is going to be minus number percentage. So this is type 1, and an example to that, there are so many in the game, by the way. You can find them from like various different things, not only skills but also items, but also components, maybe even augments, obviously constellations, devotions. There's just far too many different things that you can get these from, and you want to get as many as you can. What I mean by that is that it does stack with itself, with its type. So you can have as many type 1s, and you want to have as many type 1s as possible. So therefore you need to understand immediately when you see a resist reduction on a skill or something else, you need to understand which type it is immediately, because this is the only type of resist reduction that is capable of stacking with its with itself, or self type, let's say. So other type 1s are going to be in fact working together. So we have Curse of Frailty right over here. It's minus number percent. There's something confusing here that is like trying to, misplay, let's say. It's that percent. It doesn't necessarily need to exist. I don't really know why this percent is over here. Simply because when it comes to calculations, it doesn't necessarily take percentage of anything whatsoever. It's just an additive calculation. So if the enemy has 80 resistance and you're applying a minus 20, it's in fact going to just subtract it. So it's going to become 60 remaining. And you can continue subtracting like this the more type 1s that you have. Let's, give a really easy to understand example here. We have vulnerability when we apply Curse of Frailty on our target. That's going to be minus 25 elemental resistance, right? We just right click with our Curse of Frailty. It applies a minus 25. And then we have our Aura of Censors and Aura around us, and it's also applying a minus 25 elemental resistance as well. So it's going to be in fact at the end minus 50 elemental resistance. And then we're going to have something like Eldritch Fire, which is going to be minus 23 fire resistance right over here. That is pretty big. So we had 50, now we're going to have 73% minus fire resistance if we manage to apply the Eldritch Fire on our target. So all these things are type 1, and they're going to be working together, and it is going to be minus 73 in the example that I have given. So they're going to be additive, and they will just like subtract from the target, and this is type 1. So it's very easy to understand which type it is when it comes to type 1. The second type that we will look into is going to be a number and a percent right next to it. So this is, not that common, but Ultos and Viper are the good examples to this. There are a couple of like different stuff as well. it is not that important either, and I'm going to be talking about this in the later section of the video. Right off the bat, you can see it's 20% reduced target's elemental resistances for 3 seconds. This percent, this time around, is in fact a percentage of the target's resistances. So it's in fact going to look at, 20% of the value and then subtract that value from the resistances. So it does in fact work as a normal percentage would. That is in fact true over there. And the second type does not stack with itself, guys. What I mean is that you can only have one debuff on the target at a given time that is going to be, working for type 2. So you can only have one of the type 2. In most cases, you will want to have one type 2 as well. The last type that we're going to talk about when it comes to resist reduction in Grim Dawn is going to be just a flat number. So an example to this would be something like this right over here. An elemental storm on the last line, it says 32 reduced targets elemental resistances for 2 seconds. So it's a flat number, reduced targets resistances. That is going to be the type 3. It again does not stack with itself, which also makes it, very clear that the type 1 is the most important one, since you can take as many as possible. So, apart from this, let's right off the bat in the section 2 talk about how they're working with each other when it comes to calculation, right? So we have type 1, type 1, type 2, and type 3. Let's go ahead and say we have a 80% fire resistant monster. And then, as you remember, the stuff that I showed, we were coming up to 73%, I think, fire resistance minus, right? From my type 1s. So, while the enemy is only going to be having 7% fire resistance, right? At the end of type 1s. So, the type 2 is going to come in. Now, we're going to have to calculate, the 20%. Well, Viper is 20%, as you can see. So if we apply the full potential of Viper on our targets, we have a 7% right over there. We're going to have to times 2 that. It is 1.4. So 7 minus 1.4 equals 5.6. So that means the entirety of Viper, what it did achieve was just 1.4. So now we're looking at a 5.6 fire resistance monster. After T2 is calculated, now we're looking at T3. We're going to go ahead and check this one out. It is 32 reduced targets resistances. This is working exactly like type 1 as I've explained. So 5.6 minus 32 is going to give us minus 26.4. So we are going to be 26.4. We're going to be looking at something like this. In fact, not only are we going to, diminish the enemy's resistance to 0, but also we're going to amplify our damage by 26% going against this target. Now, from just this example, you can give so many more examples, but from just this example, I would like you to understand how meaningless this type 2 is. So when can a type 2 be important in this game? It can be very important in the early game if you're playing in veteran difficulty. If you're playing in veteran difficulty, there are some certain monsters that are quite resistant to you, and you probably won't going to be having so many type 1s at that point, because you're going to be level 30 or whatever. You won't have that many resources to find so much minus resistance. So when it comes to type 2's calculation, the enemy will still have quite a bit of resistances. And then instead of, we're subtracting 1.4, we're probably going to be subtracting 15, 16, something like that. But even then, that is not the most value. So the type 2 is really, really lackluster. In most of the characters, you could, in fact, opt into skipping this. Another thing that actually diminishes the value of type 2 is the fact that this does not go minus values. So if you reach something like a minus value on a target on your first calculation already, so instead of, 7%, if this was minus 7% on the enemy, type 2 will fail to do anything to the target because it cannot calculate the minus values whatsoever. It doesn't go more minus. It just does not calculate at that point. It just completely diminishes. Type 3 and Type 1 being the most important ones, you want to get one Type 3 on your character and as many Type 1s as you can. So once again, you want to get as many minus numbers and then a flat number on your character, as many as you can. And the calculation is going to be very simple. You're gonna put all those together on top of each other and just subtract it from your enemy, and you will be able to understand what the enemy's, final numbers are. I really hope this was useful. I'm going to be seeing you in the next video. Feel free to check out my channel for more Grim Dawn guides, and feel free to also have a suggestion down below in the comments if you would like me to cover something specifically in Grim Dawn. And there are also going to be some gameplay coming up your way as well in the channel. So please leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Thank you for watching.